Your way of doing things. I feel so compelled to speak about your way of doing things because I think wanting to fit in is the reason why in many instances we are pressurized to a point of depression, to a point of suicide, because there is our way of doing things and there's a societal way of doing things. And once you rather want to fit in, so you do things in the way of society of doing things, and it's not matching or it's not aligned with what is natural for you, it can be so depressing. It can just make you feel some type of way. I am so hurt. I'm so heartbroken. I never knew Ricky Rick on a personal level, but with what people are saying right now, with all the condolences pouring in, you can tell that he was a good guy. So I wanted to speak about your way of doing things in relation to the way that I've been doing things, right? I want to start by saying that for the longest time, I have always been the strong one. I want to start there. And I'm sure we have all heard this from time to time. Every time when somebody commits suicide, there's always going to be that line where people always say, check on your strongest friends, check on your strongest relatives, because they're the ones who are crying out for help more, right? For the longest time, I have been the strongest person that I know. One of the reasons why I've always been the strongest is because of my experiences, my life experiences. I've experienced very difficult things at a young age. I'm just going to take it all the way back to 2013 when I lost my daughter via a car accident. I remember my grandmother saying to me that, my child, I don't know how to console you because what you are going through is something that I have never experienced in my old age. So I don't even know what to say to you. You understand what I mean? So with me traveling through all of that and all other hardships that I've ever come across in my life, when people see me bouncing back, when people see me happy, when people see me just, coping and just going on with life, they think that I'm the strongest. And I always attract people who just assume that I'm the strongest. And I always attract people who feel like, you know what, I'm strong enough to carry them. I'm strong enough to actually pour into their cups. But in all honesty, I am not strong all the time. There are times where I do not want to be strong, and it took me a long time for me to understand that sometimes when I am not strong, I need to let people around me know that, listen, I'm usually strong, I'm usually able to listen to stories, I'm usually able to advise, but today I don't feel strong. Today I don't feel like I'm in a good position to be able to give advice. I don't feel like I'm in a good position to be able to carry anybody, in as much as I'm not one to want to be carried at all times, but I have learned to say that, listen, I will not be able to carry you today. Today is not a good day for me to give advice. Today is not a good day for me to listen to sad stories because I have things on my own that I'm going through. If there's one line that has ever bothered me for the longest time that I didn't even know how to address is when people say that I am strong. When people say that I am strong and they give that to me as a compliment, I did a video in the past where I was saying that being called strong is not a compliment, because when people call you strong in a way that they trying to compliment you to say, listen, you are girl power, you are mbogodo, what they're actually doing to you is that they're dismissing you and they're dismissing your feelings. Because even if you wanted to be weak, even if you wanted to cry, even if you wanted to complain, even if you wanted to just, fall down and just break down and cry, you cannot do all of that because people are already saying to you, you are strong. When they say you are strong, they're dismissing you that, you don't need a hug, you are strong. You don't need an advice, you don't need a shoulder to cry on because you are strong. And it's not right. It's not right. There is nobody who is strong all the time. You can be strong most of the times, but sometimes you are weak. And I feel like when people say you are strong all the time, they don't give you room to actually be weak when you feel like you need to be weak. You understand what I mean? So I have learned the hard way that you should be able to say to people, listen, I know that you think that I'm strong. I know that you always say that I'm strong. I know that you see me bouncing back from the worst, and you say it with your mouth that, listen, you are so strong. If it was me who was going through what you're going through, I would not be able to handle it. It doesn't mean that I feel strong, Have you care to just come closer to me and check up on me. You know, sometimes people don't check up on you because they think that you are the strong one. She'll be okay, that one. You know, she falls down, she doesn't even cry, that one, you know. So people will always put loads and loads and loads of problems on top of you because you can handle it, you are strong, you cannot cry. Guess what happens to the strongest people? They commit suicide. The strongest people can't sleep at night. The strongest people are taking depression medication simply because psychologically, when people tell you that you are strong all the time, you actually have to build up that strength, even though the elasticity of your strength it's the maximum. You are at your maximum level of strength where you feel like you can't do anything beyond that. But then because everybody's saying to you, you are strong, you are strong, you are strong, you just have to take that, and then you are even embarrassed to say, no, actually today I don't feel strong. It's okay for you to say that I'm not strong today. It's okay for you to say, listen, to the people that expect you to be strong all the time, it's okay for you to say to them from time to time, listen, I know that you think that I'm strong all the time, but today specifically, because you know the thing with me is that the way that I'm such a realist, I will not tell you a story of yesterday. I will not tell you that 5 years ago this is what happened. I will tell you about my story right now. I'm not going to pretend as if I'm strong now so that when now you will see me as this strong person, put up a front, and then 5 years later I will come to you and say, remember on that day when you came to me and you wanted to tell me your problems, I was also not okay. I was also not feeling strong, but I had to keep it in. Because when you do that, you're giving people a right to say whether I'm okay or I'm not okay. You guys can always come to me and tell me your problems, and then I will always put my things aside. You know what? Sometimes you need to tell people, even when you can see that they're not okay, they're not coping, if you feel that you are also not okay, you are also not coping, it is okay for you to tell them that, listen, I really sympathize with you, I see what you're going through, I feel you, but at this point in time, I'm also not okay, I'm also not doing well, I am saturated with my own things so much that I will not be able to hear you, I will not be able to give you sound advice because I am not okay. You should not even be embarrassed. You should not even be ashamed to say from time to time when people are asking for advice from you, when people are saying to you, you are my strength. You know, every time when I listen to you, I get strong. I get, you know, comforted. Well, if you are the comfort for other people, but you're not feeling comforted yourself in that moment, it's okay for you to say that. It's okay for you to say, listen, I really appreciate the fact that I'm comforting you right now with what I'm saying, but in everything that I'm saying right now, I'm not okay. I, for one, am not feeling comforted. I, for one, am not feeling strong. I'm actually feeling discouraged right now. I actually don't feel like getting out of bed right now. I actually don't feel like eating today. I don't even feel like bathing today. It is actually okay for you to say that. Because then you make people aware that, listen, I'm not a robot. I'm not operating on some supernatural power where you think that you're the only one who has problems, or I just have some supernatural coping mechanism where all my problems just disappear, but your problems are always welcome. You are always welcome to tell me your problems because me, I can handle mine, so I can handle yours as well. It's okay for me to handle your problems, to help you, to be there for you when I'm also okay. It's okay for me to be there for you even when I'm not okay. But it is also okay for me to say that I'm not okay today. For me to say that, listen, today all I just want is just a break. I just want a break. I don't want to hear about anybody complaining. I don't want to be solving anybody's problems. I don't want to be strong. I just want to be a human being. I remember for the past couple of days, ever since I shared my story about me losing my house to divorce and everything, a lot of people have been coming out and telling me that, listen, what you are going through is something that I went through. It's just that people don't openly speak about these kind of things, you know. It's things that have been happening for the longest time, but people don't want to speak about them. For the longest time, I have been judged for my way of doing things. Because my way of doing things is the very unusual way of doing things. Being able to speak openly about your struggles, about your hardships, about the reality of your life is not something that everybody wants to do. So many people would rather suffer in silence, suffer privately, because they feel that when they speak openly, people are laughing at them, people are rejoicing. Whether you want to speak openly about what is happening in your life or you want to keep it quiet, people are still going to rejoice if they want to rejoice. People are still going to laugh if they want to laugh. So for me, I found that when I was going through the most and people were expecting me to keep quiet about it, when people were expecting me to lay off social media, when people were expecting me to just fast and pray and stay in a secret place because what I'm going through is not something that people usually speak openly about, when I was being told, when I was being advised to keep quiet, to not speak up, to actually lay low, I realized that this is me dying. You know, after I stepped out of the hardest part of my life, I realized that so many people actually didn't make it out of this. And the reason why so many people didn't make it out of what I'm coming out of is because they chose not to speak. They chose to take advices of other people who have never even been through what they're going through. When people advise you and say lay low, when people advise you and say, listen, it's time for you to take a break from this and that, it's time for you not to do this, don't speak about this, when they have never even been through what you are going through, simply because they feel like that's a comfortable way of doing things, you do that, then it kills you. Then they remain. Then they come and they say RIP. They come and they say these beautiful things about you. You know why? Because they advise you to do something that they don't even know what you're going through. They don't even know the pain that you're going through. But they can come to you with an advice to say, you know, with this pain that you're going through, which I don't even know how deep it is, I think the best thing for you to deal with it, the best way for you to deal with it is just to keep quiet about it. Just keep quiet about it. Handle it like a man. Handle it like a woman. So the more you keep quiet about it, you are pleasing those who are around you, but you are killing yourself. I learned with the story of my own life that actually keeping quiet, for me personally, my way of doing things, keeping quiet doesn't work. Keeping quiet and pretending like I'm okay doesn't work for me. I feel like had I pretended that I'm okay, had I pretended that I'm not going through what I was going through and just did everything under wraps and just smile publicly, but while I know that I'm dying on the inside, had I done that, I feel like I would not be alive right now. I feel like I would not have survived. Had I done things the usual way, had I done things the appropriate way, had I done things the normal way of doing things, we were going to be sitting with another case of suicide. I can tell you now, the amount of things that I've been through, the way the pain was so unbearable, I feel like had I not vented, had I not openly spoke about the things that I was going through, I would have been another dead case. I would have been another case of depression to death. I would have been another case of suicide. Because the things that I went through are so painful, are so unbearable that if I was never able to speak about them, I would have died. The reality of my life is that I see that a lot of people died because of the same thing that I'm speaking about. A lot of people didn't make it alive because of the things that I'm going through right now. But because I chose to speak about them, because I chose my own personal way of doing things, my way of doing things which does not have to make sense to the next person, I'm happy with it. And I'm alive because of my way of doing things. Your way of doing things does not have to make sense to other people. Because the minute you want to accommodate other people when it comes to your way of doing things in your life, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for depression. You're setting yourself up for suicide. Because your way of doing things, which doesn't make sense to other people, could save your life. The bottom line is that we are all trying to live. We are all trying to survive. And if your way of doing things is the most ridiculous way, your way of doing things turns you into a laughing stock, but if it saves your life, then do it. Then do it. Because the normal way of doing things means that you must die, you know, with dignity, but at the end of the day, you're gonna die. You wanna die with pride, because the societal way of doing things, the normal way of doing things is deadly. If the normal way of doing things is deadly and you continue doing that way, that means that you want to die in dignity. That means that your aim is not to live. And the thing is, the people who are advising you to do things a certain way are alive. They don't know what's going on in your heart. They don't know the type of things that you are fighting in your head. They don't know any of that. But they're very quick to tell you, you know, that's not appropriate. The appropriate way of dealing with things is this, and that. I don't know how many people have come to me to give me advice on how I should behave and how I should handle myself throughout my divorce when they never even knew or never even looked at a sermon. Divorce. They don't even know how that thing looks like. They don't even know how it feels like. But because of their age, because of whatever experience, because of their qualifications, they feel like they can come to me and tell me, oh, well, listen, little girl, this is how you're going to do things. Listen to the adults. This is how you should do things. And then when I looked at the way that they're saying I should do things, it's deadly for me. When I looked at the way that people are advising me, Huri, listen, woman, listen, girl, this is how you should be doing things. We don't do things like that in our culture, in our tradition. We don't do things like that in our religion. We don't do things like that. We do them in this way. When I looked at the way which they were showing me to say, this is how you should do things, I saw that it was deadly. I saw that I was dying. Then I was like, no, I'm not going to see myself dying. I'm not going to watch my own life flashing before my eyes because I want to die an obedient child. Because I want to die a good Christian. Because I want to die a good whatever. I refuse to die. I refuse to die according to protocol. I refuse to follow the rules that somebody woke up in the morning and they decided that, listen, this is the appropriate way. This is the classy way. This is the humane way of doing things. So you better do things this way if you want to be a dignified person. If you want to remain a woman with dignity. If you want to remain, you know, the bigger person, then you should do things this way so that when you are done with everything, you will always have your dignity intact. My dignity is not going to keep me alive. I don't need dignity to stay alive. I don't need dignity to stay alive. I don't need dignity to stay. Do you understand what I'm saying? Dignity is not my oxygen. Dignity is not your oxygen. Standard is not your oxygen. You need to do whatever it takes for you to keep breathing. You need to do whatever it takes for you to survive, regardless of whether it makes sense to the next person or not, regardless of whether it looks beautiful, it looks like it's got flowers to the next person or not. But whatever it is that you need to do to survive, you have to do it. Because the very same people who are going to be advising you, saying, listen, this is not how we do things in this village. This is not how we do things in this church. This is not how we do things in this organization. They'll be the same people who will be saying rest in peace to you. They'll be the same people who will be posting about how beautiful of a human being you were. They'll be the same people who will be contributing to your funeral. And you leave your kids behind. You leave your companion behind. You leave your family behind because you chose to do things the dignified way. You chose to do things the society standard way. Do what works for you, honey. Do what works for you. Do what works for you to survive. Because the standard way of doing things is not always the best way of doing things. And another thing, my way of doing things may not be the best way of doing things. Just because it works for me doesn't necessarily mean that it will work for you. And just because it works for me doesn't mean that I must shove it down other people's throats to say, listen, for me to survive my divorce and not be depressed and not be hospitalized and not even think of committing suicide is simply because I was speaking openly about it. Just because that works for me doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for everybody else. You need to get that. You need to get that God has made us fearfully and wonderfully. God has made us and designed us uniquely. So what works for me may not work for you. Life is not a one size fits all where we all do everything the same way. Because if it was, then what saved me would not be killing somebody else. Because for some people, keeping quiet and not talking about their businesses saves them. Because they are at peace with people not knowing their business. When people don't know what is going on in their lives, they would rather have that. They would rather live with that than have everybody know their business. And I, on the other hand, I prefer to openly speak. Because when I'm quiet, it's killing me on the inside. So what is poison to me may be remedy for you. We need to get that right. So your way of doing things can never be, can never be the general way of doing things. And my way of doing things can never be the general way of doing things. So in all that, guys, I just felt like I needed to come here and speak about this, because with the condolences pouring in for Riky Rick, I feel like, you know what, we need to learn more to do things our own way, to do things which feel right to us, to do things which feel good to us, just so that we can survive. Because dignity has never been oxygen. You cannot live by dignity. You can't. You can't. You will die a dignified death, yes, but you'll be gone forever.